Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like the more you give, the less he values you? You go out of your way to be understanding, patient, flexible, thinking that being the cool, low-maintenance woman will make him love you more. But instead of earning his respect, you feel unseen, ignored, taken for granted. That's not love. That's you living without boundaries. And here's the truth that no one tells you. Men don't fall for women who sacrifice everything. They fall for the women who know their worth and protect it. In this video, we're not sugarcoating it. We're diving into the 5 most powerful boundaries that instantly shift how a man sees you, from convenient to captivating, from optional to unforgettable. These boundaries don't push him away. They pull the right man closer. You're not here to chase attention. You're here to attract real connection. And that starts by knowing where you draw the line. So if you're tired of giving your energy to men who don't step up, if you're ready to stop over-explaining, over-giving, and overcompensating, this is your wake-up call. Because once you understand how boundaries work, not just as rules, but as reflections of your self-worth, everything changes. Stay with me to the end. Not only will you walk away with actionable steps, but you'll finally know what it feels like to own your power, without apology. Let's get into it. When we talk about respect in relationships, most people assume it's something that just happens naturally. That if you love someone, respect automatically comes with it. But the truth is, respect isn't a byproduct of love. It's a choice. And more than that, it's a response to how you show up in the relationship. Here's what a lot of women don't realize. Men don't respect you because you're kind, giving, or loyal. They respect you when you respect yourself, consistently, not just when it's easy, not just when it's comfortable, but especially when it requires standing alone, saying no, or walking away from what doesn't feel right. Respect is psychological. It's deeply rooted in how we perceive strength, value, and boundaries. And whether a man is conscious of it or not, his mind is constantly responding to how you carry yourself, the way you speak about yourself, the standards you hold, the way you react when you're disappointed or pushed too far. You teach people how to treat you by what you tolerate. And a man will often test your limits, not out of cruelty, but out of instinct. He's subconsciously asking, how solid is she really? Will she lose herself to keep me around? And if the answer is yes, his respect slowly erodes. What makes a woman magnetic is not how far she bends, but how gracefully she holds her ground. Not with aggression or ultimatums, but with quiet, unwavering confidence. She doesn't beg for better treatment. She expects it, and if she doesn't get it, she moves accordingly. And here's the most important piece. Respect precedes emotional safety. A man cannot truly love you if he doesn't respect you first. He may desire you. He may enjoy your presence. But love without respect is fragile, and often selfish. So if you've ever felt like men lose interest once you show your heart, or that they don't take you seriously even when you're fully invested, it's time to look inward. Are you showing up with strong boundaries? Are you holding yourself to the same standard you expect from him? Or are you hoping that love will convince someone to treat you the way you deserve? When you shift from chasing validation to standing in your value, the entire dynamic changes. Men step up. Low-effort behavior falls away. You stop questioning your worth, because your standards already speak for you. Respect isn't a demand. It's a result, and it starts with you. The way you value your time, protect your energy, speak your truth, and choose who gets access to you. That's the psychology behind respect in relationships. And once a man sees that, he either rises to meet you or walks away because he can't. Either way, you win. One of the most subtle yet powerful ways women give their power away in relationships is by over-explaining themselves. And it usually doesn't feel like a big deal at first. You're trying to be understood, avoid conflict, or justify your feelings so the other person won't get upset. But here's the hard truth. When you constantly explain and defend yourself, what you're really saying is, I don't fully trust that I have the right to feel what I feel unless you agree with me. That might sound harsh, but it's a trap so many fall into, especially women who've been taught to avoid being too much, too emotional, or too direct. So instead of speaking simply and clearly, you offer a long explanation hoping it will soften your message. You walk on verbal eggshells. You replay conversations in your head wondering if you said it the right way. And what happens? The man in front of you doesn't take your words seriously. Not because your message wasn't valid, but because your delivery told him you're second-guessing yourself. Men respond to certainty, to clarity. When you say what you mean and leave it at that, it sends a signal. I know what I said. I don't need to convince you to respect it. That's powerful, and it's rare, which is exactly why it commands attention and respect. Now, let's be clear. There's a difference between healthy communication and over-explaining. You can absolutely share where you're coming from, especially in emotionally intimate moments. But when you feel the urge to over-justify, to ramble, to reframe the same point 5 different ways, pause. Ask yourself, am I trying to communicate, or am I trying to manage how this person sees me? The minute your words are more about their comfort than your truth, you've crossed into over-explaining, and it's a habit that slowly chips away at your authority and confidence in the relationship. You do not need to over-explain why you need space. You do not need to over-explain why you didn't text back right away. You do not need to over-explain why something hurt your feelings. A simple, direct statement like "that doesn't work for me," or "I'm not comfortable with that," is enough. You don't owe a 5-paragraph essay for having boundaries. In fact, when you stop explaining everything, you'll be surprised at how quickly people start to lean in and listen more closely. Why? Because silence, when used with intention, creates weight. So next time you feel that pressure to justify your needs, remember you are not a spokesperson for your emotions. You are not here to win someone's approval. You're here to be clear, grounded, and unapologetically honest. That's boundary number 1. And when you master it, everything shifts. Saying no seems simple, right? It's just a 2-letter word. But for so many women, those 2 letters come wrapped in fear, guilt, and overthinking. You feel the pressure to say yes, so you won't hurt his feelings, disappoint someone, or come across as cold or selfish. But the truth is, every time you say yes when you actually mean no, you're abandoning yourself. Just a little more. Think about how many times you've said yes out of obligation instead of desire. You agreed to plans you didn't want to go to. You entertained conversations that drained you. You tolerated behavior that made you uncomfortable, not because you were okay with it, but because you didn't want to seem difficult. But what's actually difficult is living a life where your boundaries are constantly crossed, simply because you were too afraid to hold them. Learning to say no without guilt is a boundary that separates women who people please from women who are respected. Because when you say no, clearly and calmly, you're not rejecting someone, you're honoring yourself. That's not selfish, that's healthy. And the people who truly care about you, they will respect that no. They may not love it in the moment, but they'll understand it. The people who don't respect it are often the ones who are benefiting from your lack of boundaries in the first place. What makes this boundary so powerful is that it removes the need for emotional justification. You don't have to feel bad for protecting your peace. You don't need to over-explain why you're choosing yourself. You're allowed to say no just because it doesn't feel aligned. And no, you don't have to offer a softer version of it. Not maybe later, not I'll think about it. Just no. Kindly, but firmly. This applies to everything. Emotional labor, physical intimacy, your time, your energy. You are not available for everything, and you shouldn't be. When a man hears you say no with confidence and without apology, it tells him something very important. You don't betray yourself to be liked, and that more than anything, earns respect. Here's what happens when you begin living this boundary. Your yes becomes more meaningful. When you do say yes, people know it's genuine, not just a reflex, not just a survival response. And most importantly, you stop feeling resentful, because you're no longer saying yes while silently screaming no on the inside. Saying no without guilt is not a skill you learn overnight, it's a muscle. And every time you use it, it gets stronger. At first you might feel nervous. That's okay. Growth doesn't always feel comfortable. But over time, your peace will become more valuable than anyone else's temporary approval. And when that happens, you'll stop asking permission to protect your own boundaries. You'll just do it. That's when you'll notice people start treating you very differently. And that's exactly the point. There's a space inside you that no one else can see. Your inner world, your thoughts, your energy, your peace, your intuition. That space is sacred, but too often, it becomes wide open to anyone who wants access. We allow people to unload on us, project onto us, manipulate our emotions, or draw us into chaos, and we call it connection. But it's not. It's emotional vulnerability without boundaries, and over time, it will drain you. Protecting your emotional space means being conscious of who gets to impact your mood, your focus, your sense of self. It's not about building walls or becoming cold. It's about having a filter. Not everyone deserves the same level of emotional access to you, especially if they haven't earned it. Love doesn't mean being emotionally available 24/7. Respect doesn't mean absorbing someone else's problems just to keep the peace. If someone constantly leaves you feeling anxious, confused, or emotionally exhausted, that's a sign your boundary is too thin, or maybe missing entirely. Maybe you keep picking up the phone for someone who never checks in on you. Maybe you keep engaging in emotionally loaded conversations that go in circles. Or maybe you're constantly regulating his emotions at the expense of your own. Here's the truth. You are not responsible for carrying someone else's emotional weight. You can be compassionate without being consumed. You can listen without absorbing. You can care without losing yourself in the process. The difference is the boundary, and it's invisible, but powerful. Sometimes protecting your emotional space looks like stepping away when someone is trying to provoke you. Sometimes it's choosing not to argue when you know the conversation is going nowhere. Sometimes it's saying, I need time to process this, or I don't have the capacity for this right now, and not feeling guilty about it. The people who belong in your life will understand. The ones who try to guilt trip you, manipulate your feelings, or label you difficult for protecting your energy. They were never there for your well-being. They were there for what you could give emotionally, and that's a one-sided relationship. When a man sees that you protect your emotional space, he understands you are not to be messed with, that you value your peace, and you won't give it up for temporary attention or chaotic chemistry. It sets a tone. If he wants to be close to you, he has to come correct, emotionally, mentally, and energetically. This boundary will not only protect your heart, it will transform your relationships. Because once you stop letting just anyone into your emotional world, you stop feeling drained, scattered, or anxious. You start to feel powerful, clear, calm. And from that place, you can actually connect more deeply, but only with people who respect the version of you that refuses to be emotionally overwhelmed just to make someone else comfortable. That's emotional sovereignty, and it's everything. Mixed signals are not confusing. They are clear signs that someone is unsure, inconsistent, or unwilling to be honest. But too often, we convince ourselves there's something deeper to decode. One day, he's affectionate, texting you first, showing interest. The next, he's distant, distracted, or disappears altogether. And instead of seeing that inconsistency as a red flag, we turn it into a puzzle. Maybe he's busy. Maybe he's scared. Maybe I just need to be more patient. But here's the truth. A man who is emotionally available and genuinely interested will not leave you guessing. He won't communicate in half-truths. He won't send breadcrumbs, hoping you'll keep chasing. And he definitely won't treat your time and energy like something disposable. Tolerating mixed signals teaches someone that they don't have to be clear with you. It tells them, you can show up when it's convenient and disappear when it's not, and I'll still be here. That's not a connection. That's emotional limbo. And it slowly wears down your confidence, your self-worth, and your ability to trust your own instincts. When you accept inconsistent behavior, you end up overanalyzing everything. You read too much into one good conversation. You downplay how bad the silence feels. You start waiting for the version of him that only shows up once in a while, and you ignore the reality that he's not consistently that person. Protecting yourself from mixed signals isn't about being harsh or reactive. It's about being clear on what you deserve. You don't need to demand attention. You just need to observe effort. You don't need to make someone choose you. You need to recognize when they're not. A man who's emotionally mature will never put you in a position where you feel uncertain about where you stand. So when the behavior doesn't match the words, believe the behavior. If he says he wants something serious but acts casual, that's a mixed signal. If he shows interest but disappears for days, that's a mixed signal. If he's charming in person, but barely communicates when you're apart, that's a mixed signal. And the longer you stay in that space, the more you start doubting yourself instead of questioning him. The boundary here is non-negotiable. If someone's energy toward you is inconsistent, that's your answer. You don't confront them to get clarity. You don't wait it out, hoping they'll evolve. You remove yourself from the uncertainty and reclaim your peace. You show, through your actions, that you don't do emotional games, that your heart is not available to people who can't show up fully, clearly, and consistently. Mixed signals are emotional manipulation, whether intentional or not. And when you stop tolerating them, you stop attracting them, because you're no longer available for confusion. You're only available for clarity, commitment, and mutual respect. That's what real connection is built on, and it starts with you knowing your worth so clearly that you'll never settle for anything less than certainty again. You were not put on this earth to make everyone else comfortable while abandoning yourself. Yet so many women are taught that putting themselves first is selfish, that it's wrong, cold, or somehow unloving. So they make themselves smaller to keep the peace. They silence their needs to avoid conflict. They overextend, overcommit, and overgive, hoping that if they're good enough, they'll be loved in return. But here's the reality. Putting yourself last doesn't earn you love. It earns you burnout. It doesn't create connection. It creates resentment. And any relationship that requires you to constantly deprioritize yourself to keep it alive isn't love. It's sacrifice disguised as loyalty. Putting yourself first is not about being self-absorbed. It's about being self-aware. It means you know who you are, what you need, and what you're no longer willing to compromise just to be liked. It means showing up for yourself before you show up for anyone else. Not because you don't care, but because you understand that you cannot pour from an empty cup. In relationships, this boundary is crucial because when you don't put yourself first, you start making choices from a place of fear. Fear of being alone, fear of being abandoned, fear of not being enough. And fear will have you accepting bare minimum effort, tolerating disrespect, and chasing people who are not even walking toward you. But when you do put yourself first, everything shifts. You stop chasing validation because you already validate yourself. You stop begging for love because you no longer question whether you're worthy of it. And you stop giving access to people who only show up when it's convenient for them. This kind of self-prioritization creates a magnetic energy. People can feel when a woman is rooted in her own power, when she's not looking for someone to complete her, but rather complement her. Men respect a woman who knows what she brings to the table and refuses to shrink just to be chosen. She chooses herself every time. And putting yourself first doesn't just change how others treat you. It changes how you see the world. You make clearer decisions. You recover from heartbreak faster. You spot red flags sooner. You stop trying to save people who need to save themselves. And you start attracting relationships that are grounded in mutual respect, not dependency. You become the standard, and not everyone will meet it, but the right ones will. Because the people who are meant for you will never ask you to dim your light, delay your dreams, or deplete your energy to stay close. So if you've ever been told that choosing yourself is selfish, let this be your permission to rewrite that story. Putting yourself first isn't just a boundary, it's a lifestyle. It's a commitment to never leave yourself behind, no matter who walks into or out of your life. And once you live that truth, you never go back. So here's the truth. Boundaries aren't about pushing people away. They're about pulling yourself back into alignment. They're about finally stepping into the version of you that doesn't shrink, chase, or beg. The version of you who doesn't tolerate confusion, doesn't accept crumbs, and doesn't settle just to feel chosen for a moment. You were never meant to be the woman who waits in silence, overthinks his texts, or makes excuses for inconsistent behavior. You were born to stand fully in your worth, not because someone gave you permission, but because you finally decided you don't need it. And the moment you do, everything around you shifts. The wrong people fall away. The chaos quiets. The emotional roller coasters stop. Not because the world changed, but because you did. Because you chose to set standards instead of living in survival mode. Because you started listening to your inner voice more than outside opinions. Because you realized that love doesn't require you to abandon yourself. That's the power of boundaries. They're not about control. They're about clarity. When you're clear about who you are and what you deserve, you don't have to fight to be seen. You naturally attract people who already see you, and those who don't, they quietly exit. Let them. You're not here to prove your value. You're here to live it. Now, I want to leave you with a challenge, and it's not theoretical. It's something I want you to take seriously. Before today ends, choose one boundary from this video that hit the deepest. Maybe it's saying no without guilt. Maybe it's walking away from mixed signals. Maybe it's simply putting yourself first in one small decision. Just one. Write it down. Say it out loud. Let it live in your body, not just your mind. And more importantly, live it. The real transformation happens when the boundary moves from an idea to an action. You don't have to become someone else. You just have to return to the version of you that always existed. The one who knew, deep down, that her peace is priceless, and that her love isn't something to be earned through suffering. This is your moment to reclaim your space, your voice, your standards, not to prove anything, but to protect everything that matters to you. Because the more you honor yourself, the more life rises up to meet you in that same energy. So here's your reminder. You don't have to wait to be respected. You only have to decide you're done settling for anything less. And when you do, they'll feel it, they'll see it, and they'll either rise or move. Either way, you win.